I chose to do my paper on the Victorian author Charlotte Bronte. Her early life. Charlotte was born on April 21st, 1816, in West Riding of Yorkshire to Patrick and Maria Bronte. She had 5 siblings, 4 sisters, Maria, Elizabeth, Emily, Anne, and 1 brother, Bronwell. Her father was a school teacher, tutor, and a minor poet who later became a priest. In September of 1821, her mother died due to cancer when Charlotte was only 5 years old. Therefore, Charlotte and her 5 other siblings were raised by their Elizabeth Bronwell and their father. In August of 1824, her father sent her along with Emily, Maria, and Elizabeth to the clergy daughters' school where the living conditions were unbearable. Charlotte's 2 older sisters, Maria and Elizabeth, passed away at boarding school, which prompted Charlotte and Emily to be returned home. Upon returning home, they were tutored by their father. Her personal life. Charlotte received a proposal of marriage from Arthur Bell Nicholas, her father's curate, who had long been in love with her. She initially turned down his proposal, and her father was initially against the marriage because of Arthur's poor financial status. Charlotte became increasingly attracted to him and accepted his proposal, and eventually gained her father's approval. They went on a honeymoon in Ireland. Her male pen name was Currer Bell, and she published her work under that name because she wanted the audience to remain unbiased about her work. She wanted the readers to focus on her work rather than judging the author. During that time, society was prejudiced against women novelists. Some of her works include Jane Eyre, Shirley Willett, The Professor, which was written before Jane Eyre, submitted first along with Wuthering Heights and Agnes Grey, then separately and rejected by many published houses, but finally published after her death in 1857. Bronte published her first novel, Jane Eyre, in 1847, which sparked controversy but also became extremely famous. The novel Jane Eyre is arguably her best work because the themes of the novel bravely contradicted society, and she talked about issues relevant to the time period. She was ahead of her time, known as a modern woman, because in a society that oppressed and belittled women and believed they were meant for having and raising offspring, she challenged these notions. Jane Eyre tells the story of a plain governess, Jane, who, after difficulties in her early life, falls in love with her employer, Mr. Rochester. They marry, but only after Rochester's insane first wife, of whom Jane initially has no knowledge of, dies in a dramatic house fire. Bronte's life is depicted through this novel, and the main protagonist, Jane Eyre, bears many similarities to Bronte. Both these women held beliefs way ahead of their time, and they were strong, opinionated, independent women, but were not too good-looking. Jane was an orphan, and Bronte lost her mother at a very young age. They were both sent away to unpleasant boarding schools and experienced a terrible time there. Bronte used her observations from her time at the clergy school to create the fictional school Lowood, which Eyre attended, to describe the horrible conditions. During their lifetime, they both saw and experienced many illnesses and diseases. Both the lives of Eyre and Bronte were tragic and full of traumatic experiences. Bronte created a simple heroine in Jane which resembled Bronte herself. Bronte became pregnant soon after her wedding, but her health declined rapidly, and she passed away with her unborn child on March 31st, 1855, at the age of 38 from dehydration and malnourishment. Bronte contributed to Victorian literacy immensely by developing a modern novel and challenging Victorian norms in her writing. Despite her troubled childhood, through the experiences of her life, she successfully created fantasy worlds which also seemed to resemble her own life and related to the time period. Bronte, along with her sisters, were all inspiring authors whose works are still appreciated and relevant to society till this day. This is an image of Emily, Charlotte, and Anne, the Bronte sisters, and my works cited.